Then you burn her body. Okay, is that part true?
Mhm.
So is her body should still be there?
I burned it and then scattered it and thrown it in the creek.
Into the creek?
Yes.
It's a creek full of water?
Yes.
On October 21st, 2009, in St. Martins, Missouri, a 9-year-old girl named Elizabeth Olten vanished while walking home from a friend's house. The search lasted for 2 days, involving hundreds of volunteers and the FBI. They were looking for a predator.
Truly is a family's worst nightmare. In this case, 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten from Cole County has been missing since yesterday evening.
Ryan, I can tell you that the number of volunteers and law enforcement across the state have tripled since last night to more than 300 people. They are covering a half-square-mile grid search near Elizabeth Olten's home that is just behind me.
They were looking for a stranger. They found a shallow grave in the woods behind Elizabeth's neighborhood. But the person who led them there wasn't a lifelong criminal. It was a 15-year-old girl who lived just 4 houses away. Her name was Alyssa Bustamante. To her classmates, she was a typical teenager who liked music and spent time outdoors.
I cut her throat and she died. And I just stabbed her.
That evening, Alyssa had lured Elizabeth into the woods, strangled her, and stabbed her multiple times. When investigators recovered Alyssa's diary, they found an entry written on the night of the murder. She didn't describe regret or fear. She told police she did it because she simply wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. This is the story of Alyssa Bustamante, a case that forced a small town to realize that sometimes the most dangerous person in the neighborhood could be the child next door. The digital crime scene. Before police ever questioned her, the evidence was already there, sitting on her phone. Investigators initially believed Elizabeth's disappearance might have been an abduction by a stranger passing through the Missouri state capital area. There were no witnesses, no signs of a struggle in the street. But while the town was focused on the woods, the digital trail was already pointing to the house 4 doors down. When detectives first questioned people in, they spoke to Alyssa Bustamante. She was a neighbor and an occasional babysitter for the Olten family. She was calm. She was helpful. She claimed she had seen Elizabeth earlier that day, but that the girl had headed home. But when detectives looked at her phone, the timeline collapsed. Messages, searches, and deleted data revealed a timeline that didn't match her account and pointed to actions taken long before police arrived. What they found would turn a routine missing person search into a capital murder investigation. The premeditation, 2 graves. This case's tension doesn't come from a sudden moment of rage. It's found in the weeks of cold, quiet preparation. Forensic analysis of Alyssa's phone and computer revealed that the murder of Elizabeth Olten was not a crime of opportunity. It was the execution of a planned project. 2 weeks before Elizabeth disappeared, Alyssa began digging. She didn't just dig 1 grave, she dug 2. She spent days in the woods behind her house, clearing brush and excavating shallow pits. When friends or family asked what she was doing, she told them she was playing in the dirt or working on a project. In reality, she was preparing the final resting places for victims she hadn't even chosen yet. The digital evidence showed she was researching the most efficient ways to kill. Her search history included queries like how to kill someone and get away with it, jugular vein location, decomposition rates of human remains in Missouri soil. These weren't the searches of a confused child. They were the questions of someone learning how to kill. The execution. October 21st, 2009. Around 4:00 in the afternoon, Elizabeth asked her mother, Patty Price, if she could visit a neighbor's house. This was something she did often. The neighbor lived close by, and the area was considered completely safe. Patty agreed, expecting Elizabeth to be back before dinner. Elizabeth left home, not knowing that this ordinary routine was about to take a tragic turn. As the sun set and the afternoon light disappeared, dinner time came and went. Elizabeth still hadn't returned. At first, Patty tried to stay calm. She told herself that Elizabeth was probably still with her friends or had lost track of time. However, when phone calls went unanswered and neighbors said they hadn't seen her since mid-afternoon, the panic grew. The long-held sense of safety in St. Martins slowly began to fall apart. The missing child report? The police were called later that evening, and a missing child report was filed. It got an immediate response, turning the quiet night in St. Martins to an active search operation. Helicopters with searchlights flew low over the area, their beams looking across the ground as they searched for any trace of the young girl. As midnight passed, the situation became even more alarming for both the family and the investigators. Investigators followed the standard steps for a missing person. They created a timeline of Elizabeth's last known movements and started speaking with people who had been nearby that afternoon. This is when the focus turned to Alyssa Bustamante. Alyssa was well known in the area and had even babysat Elizabeth before. On the surface, she seemed like a regular high school student living with her grandparents and attending classes. But beneath that, people knew she struggled with major depression and had a history of self-harm. The early interviews and digital clues. Police went to Alyssa's home to speak with her. She said she had seen Elizabeth earlier that day but claimed the girl had gone home soon after. However, detectives noticed that Alyssa showed almost no emotion. Her cold, detached behavior made investigators more suspicious. By the second day of the search, police followed standard procedure and requested a warrant to examine Alyssa Bustamante's cell phone. They were simply looking for routine messages, but what they found was far more disturbing. Alyssa's phone itself had become a digital crime scene. The first clue appeared in her text messages. Just hours after Elizabeth had been reported missing, Alyssa had sent texts to friends talking about the difficulty of getting rid of a body. When investigators looked through her belongings, they discovered a handwritten bucket list in her notebook. One entry stood out clearly: killing someone. At that moment, the case shifted to what appeared well-planned and intentional: the diary entry and the confession. The most disturbing piece of evidence was found in a digital diary app on Alyssa's phone. The entry she had typed on the very day Elizabeth disappeared gave a direct, emotionless description of what she had done. The words were blunt and unsettling. "I just killed someone. I strangled them and cut their throat and stabbed them." I don't know how to feel about it. I was like, whoa, I just killed somebody. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the "oh my God, I can't do this" feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kind of nervous and shaky though right now. "Okay, I gotta go to church now, lol." This note, written by a 16-year-old, described the planned killing. It was a real-time account, revealing her thoughts and feelings immediately after the crime. The casual lol at the end, following her description of the act, highlighted how emotionally disconnected she was. The entries went on to explain how she had lured Elizabeth into the woods, carried out the attack, and then covered the body with leaves in a shallow grave. She even mentioned going to a church event afterward, showing how easily she slipped back into normal life. With this evidence, police brought Alyssa in for a second interview. Once confronted with her own diary entries, her overall calm manner changed. She confessed fully and led officers to the exact spot where she had buried Elizabeth. The location was disturbingly close, just a short walk from both homes. The discovery of Elizabeth's body ended the search, while the investigation moved into its next phase. The way she confessed, guiding officers straight to the body, was key to confirming what she wrote in her digital diary. Motive and planning. The hardest part of the case for the public to understand was the motive. When questioned, Alyssa said there had been no argument, no fight, and no conflict between her and Elizabeth. Her explanation was direct. She wanted to know what it felt like to commit murder. She had been planning the act for some time, aiming to fulfill an entry on her dark bucket list. Behavioral experts classify this type of crime as a thrill killing. It is motivated by the desire to experience the act itself, rather than by emotions like anger, jealousy, or revenge. The difference between the quiet girl the town knew and the calculated violence shown on her phone was shocking. The phone also contained additional evidence of planning. In the weeks before October 21st, police found disturbing Google search queries on her device, including phrases like "how to kill someone and get away with it," and searches about decomposition rates in different environments. This confirmed that the murder was not spontaneous but carefully planned. Handwritten notes further highlighted the calculation. Alyssa first tried to strangle Elizabeth. When that failed, she calmly went home, got a kitchen knife, and returned to the woods to finish the attack. This deliberate pause, the act of leaving, retrieving a weapon, and returning, showed clear intention and proved the crime was not impulsive. The digital records revealed no panic or hesitation, only a focus on completing her plan. Her ability to carry out each step calmly showed her commitment to the violence. Legal proceedings and sentencing. When the legal process began, Alyssa Bustamante was charged with first-degree murder. Her defense focused on her history of mental health issues, presenting evidence of major depressive disorder, past self-harm, suicide attempts, and previous hospitalizations. Her personal journal contained dark poetry and notes about isolation. They argued the crime resulted from severe mental illness rather than deliberate malice. Experts note that some individuals with serious depression may externalize their psychological pain, directing it toward others rather than solely self-harming. The defense argued Alyssa's actions fit this pattern. Missouri law separates intentional malicious acts from those caused by reduced mental ability. However, the tone of her murder diary, especially her cold, detached account and the infamous Lowell, was definite evidence for the prosecution. It showed a clear lack of empathy and deliberate planning. According to the prosecution, the online searches and her repeated attempt to kill the victim proved the preparation needed for a first-degree charge. The court also had to decide whether the diary could be used as evidence. The defense argued that searching Alyssa's phone violated her digital privacy, but the court disagreed, ruling the device contained crucial evidence for a serious crime investigation. In February 2012, Alyssa accepted a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and armed criminal action, avoiding a full trial where she could have faced life without parole. The plea deal caused public outrage, as many believed Elizabeth's case deserved a full trial and stricter punishment. During sentencing, Elizabeth's family shared how deeply they were affected by the loss of a child who had brought joy to their lives. Patty Pre's victim's mother: "No word will ever explain the way I feel. A huge piece of me is gone, and I will miss Elizabeth every second for the rest of my life." During sentencing, the judge acknowledged her troubled past, but also highlighted the deliberate planning behind it. Her own words were central to the prosecution's case. Alyssa was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years plus 10 additional years for the armed criminal action. While the sentence meant decades of imprisonment, many felt it could not match the life Elizabeth would never get to live. The case offered a detailed look into the mind of a troubled teenager. Alyssa Bustamante had concealed a dark side from her family and community, documented in the entries she typed on the night of the crime. The contrast between her public image and the recorded actions made the case even more concerning. The final impact, the legal and societal impact of the Elizabeth Olten case, reached far beyond the courtroom. Alyssa Bustamante's plea deal, life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years, offered the Olten family a measure of justice, but not complete closure. One of the most significant outcomes was the legal precedent it set in digital forensics. The court's decision to admit the contents of Alyssa's phone as evidence reinforced the idea that personal digital devices can function as crime scenes. This ruling is now frequently cited by prosecutors and legal scholars when explaining how phone warrants are justified and how digital evidence must be collected and preserved in serious juvenile cases. In St. Martin's, the psychological impact was immediate and lasting, shattering the town's sense of trust and safety. Local schools responded by expanding counseling and mental health programs, emphasizing early intervention for students showing emotional or behavioral struggles. Academically, the case remains a key example in discussions of adolescent psychology and criminal responsibility. It exposed gaps in mental health care and highlighted the failure to recognize early warning signs in vulnerable teenagers. Ultimately, the tragedy prompted a broader reevaluation of safety protocols and mental health resources in small communities across the country. Its influence continues to shape legal, educational, and psychological discussions across the country, while Alyssa continues to serve her time in prison. So, what do you think about this case? Could Alyssa's punishment ever truly compensate for the life Elizabeth lost? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, hit like and share the full story with someone. Make sure you subscribe and join us to uncover more such true crime events together. Thanks for watching.